So excited that our website is finally up. Go to the fightwithinpodcast.com. Check out the homepage. You can watch the episode there. You can take a look at some of the merchandise that we have and some of the things that we're offering on the website. You can also check out some old episodes on there if you'd like. Click on the Our Host page. You'll learn a little bit about Ben and I. There's a quick bio on there. It gives you some information of some of the things that we've done and some of the things we want to do. If you check out our catalog, it'll take you to the page where we have some of the new shirt designs. We have shirts, headwear, coffee mugs, all on there for you guys to check out. We're excited to finally have this up.
Episode of the Fight Within podcast is presented to you by Meguiar's. For over 115 years, Meguiar's has been carefully creating and producing advanced formulas with cutting-edge chemistry to deliver a show car perfect appearance. Whether you're showing on the fairway, finalizing your car for auction, or simply getting your beloved car ready for a weekend drive, Meguiar's is ready to help with their premium car care products to make every automotive surface look its absolute best. Meguiar's, reflect your passion. Make sure to visit them at meguiars.com.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fight Within podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Mike Wilson. He's a jiu-jitsu badass, as Ben likes to describe him. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, a jiu-jitsu entrepreneur, coach. I mean, you got so many things going on.
Some of those things, yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you and making time for us and coming on. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you're at now.
For sure. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
My boy Ben, from Hidden House. Guys got the coffees. That's the cue for both of you guys.
I know, right?
Hidden House. Labels
out.
But my boy hit me up and asked me to come on. And you guys have interviewed my girlfriend before.
Yeah.
So Ashley Evans Smith. So it was awesome. Thanks for the invitation. So kind of my story, like where I got started in the game was like I did a couple years of wrestling in high school, and it was like 2 years. I was terrible. I was a baseball player, and coach was just like, "Hey, everyone should try to play another sport." Most of the guys went to like track or something like that. You know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh, let me try wrestling," and I was just horrible at it. Not dedicated to it. The workouts are way more intense than baseball or anything like or anything like that. And so that was when I kind of got my first taste, because the coach there was like hard-nosed wrestler dude, but he was into the UFC.
Yeah.
And this was like 2003 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So that was when I kind of got my first taste, and like through him, I started to like watch UFC like videotapes, back in the day. So from there, I went through high school, continued to play baseball. High school ended, and I was about 19, and like one day I was walking to go get like a Little Caesars like $5 pizza.
Yeah.
It's like a year after high school. You're in like junior college, and you're just like the freshman 15, and like getting a little chubby. And that was me. I was like walking to get this $5 pizza, and there's a jiu-jitsu gym that just happened to be right next door. I didn't even know,
Next to Little Caesars?
Next to Little Caesars in Long Beach. Right? That's where I'm from, is Long Beach, California. So, I get my pizza, go in there, get my $5 pizza. And I like walking by, and it's got like the retail glass windows, and I'm like, oh, I see these dudes and gis throwing each other. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's like a judo gym is what I thought of, right? Because I kind of knew what it was. So I like poke my head in there for a second, watch them, and like the coach, Brazilian dude named Marcelo, was like, hey, buddy, what's going on? I'm like, oh, what are you guys doing? Like, is this judo? And he's like, judo? You know judo? I'm just like, yeah, kind of. He's like, no, buddy, this is jujitsu. Like, you want to try it? I was like, oh, I wrestled. And he's like, oh, wrestler. Come back tonight at 6 o'clock. Come try the class. And I was like, okay. So, go home, whatever. Eat your pizza, get all filled up, nasty. And I go to this class at 6 o'clock, and, the coach is there. There's only a couple people in the gym. And there's this, like, 14, maybe 13, 14-year-old kid, green belt, right? And so the coach is like, okay, gives me a loaner gi, shows me how to tie the belt, and give you a white belt, right? Tie it on. He's like, okay, you're gonna roll with Tony. He's a green belt kid. This kid triangled me like 15 times in a row, dude. Like triangle, arm bar, like just destroyed me. He's just like, just do what you know. Try to take him down. Boom, I'd take this kid down, triangle. Take him down, arm bar. Take him down, triangle. So I was just like, whoa. And after like 5 minutes of that, you're laying there and you're like, what? You're just questioning everything in life. You're just like, this little kid can kick my ass. You know, the guy and coach came up to me and was just like, he's like, so what do you think? And I'm like, dude, I think I need to learn this shit. Like, this is the real deal, you know? So that's how I got started in jiu-jitsu. And I trained with Brazilian top team in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first team. I trained with them for about 7 years.
Oh, wow.
I went white through brown belt under them. And I was a gi guy and competed in the gi. Had some MMA fights under them as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was like still kind of back in the day. Like, I think I had my first fight 2010.
Nice.
So, and this was like, you know, you were still training jiu-jitsu in the gi every day.
Yeah.
And then your coach would be like, you know, 2 weeks before the fight, like, take the gi top off, no shirts, and just gi pants and MMA gloves. And they're sparring, you know? It was like totally not, you know, the world of MMA training today.
Yeah.
So that was like my baptism by fire, you know, was training with that team. And then, you know, I ended up leaving that school as a brown belt. I've been a brown belt for a couple of years, bounced around for a little bit. I trained in Brazil and Rio for about a month and a half, like 6 weeks, and stayed down there.
That's cool.
Super awesome experience. That was after the Olympics, the Rio Olympics. Okay. It was like a month after that. Me and a couple buddies, there's 4 of us. We all jumped in on a Airbnb in Rio, and we're like, fuck it, we're staying down here for like a month.
Oh,
A couple guys, you know, went home after 3 or 4 weeks, but me and my friends stayed for 6. And we trained down there, and that was just a really, really awesome, cool experience. And that was like a pivotal moment, because I was like in between jobs. I had just like gotten fired from like a job I was working, like not showing up, training jiu-jitsu. Like I think I got fired because I like went like on a road trip to Phoenix and like didn't get anybody to cover my shifts.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, I gotta go compete. I'll just worry about this shit later. And so I went down to Rio and trained down for 6 months, and that was like a pivoting moment where I was like, okay, like, when I get home, like, shit's real now.
Yeah.
You know, like, I got to get a new job or, like, figure something out. And at the time, I just started training with Casey Halstead at 10 Planet Orange County. And so that was, like, where I was bouncing in between gyms, and I just started training with him. I had the trip already planned, went to Rio, whatever. And I came back, and, you know, I was talking to Coach Casey one day, and I was new to the team.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's a pretty prolific MMA coach. You know, he's coached kind of who's who in Orange County and Vegas over the years. And, you know, at that time, I was still new to his team, and he was just like, man, you know, you're really talented, you know, and I think you could do this for a living. He's like, why don't you, I just moved to Vegas a few months ago, because he was, you know, a 42-year-old guy, and he had a baby with his second wife. And so he kind of like hit the reset button on life and moved to Vegas, you know, to go make a better, you know, it's just cheaper out there. It's better. He can provide better out there. So he's like, man, I see a lot of potential in you. Why don't you move to Vegas and help me run these gyms out here? I'm going to open another academy in Vegas, and, you know, you work full time for me. And I was like, at the time, you know, the dude owned 5 gyms in Orange County, another in Tucson. You know, Casey's like the mogul of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
He's the tycoon of opening gyms and starting businesses. So I was like, man, this is the opportunity I was waiting for, kind of, you know, not waiting for, but working for it, right? So I jumped on it, moved to Vegas, trained out there with him for about 4.5 years, got my black belt from him, had a couple MMA fights under him. And then, you know, everything was great. I've been a black belt for like a year, and he comes to me and he's like, man, you know, the number one thing he's always kind of guided me by, and the biggest lesson I've learned from him is like, nothing ever grows and when you're comfortable, right?
Yeah.
The comfortable zone's a beautiful place, but nothing can grow there. You know, so at that point, I've been a black belt for a year, and he was like, man, now it's time for you to go start your own army, go start your own school, go be the general of your own spot. So I moved back to Southern California, 2020, a couple months before pandemic. Me and my girlfriend Ashley just started dating, and she had a fight in UFC London.
Yeah.
And so we went over to go corner her, and that was like the exact days that the pandemic broke out.
Dang.
Fight got canceled. We ended up flying back the same, like, 10, 12 hours on the ground in London. Had to fly back home. You know, and so since then it's been like, oh man, the world's all upside down. And I moved back out here to open my gym. So it's been up and down, you know, the roller coaster of like figuring out this is what I want to do for a living, to, okay, I'm a full-time coach in Vegas for years now.
Yeah.
And then now I'm ready to start my own gym. And then the pandemic happens, and it's like really tough time to start a business. And that kind of led me into the stuff I'm doing now, you know, with traveling with USA Grappling and doing my own event series.
To backtrack a little bit, because I think it's really cool, and interesting that you were in Rio for 6 weeks and trained jiu-jitsu. Was that the goal, was to go over there and train, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And how were they welcoming? Because you are American.
Oh,
and
man.
you hear these horror stories.
Yeah. So that trip was.
That's a good question.
That trip was crazy. Let's touch on that. Was like, so it was 2014 was the Rio Games, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Something like
16,
that. Something.
Yeah. Might have been 16 actually. 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the Rio Olympics, like, I don't know if you guys remember the Rio, like right before the Rio Olympics, but there was a lot of tourists that went down there, right? And like, stories of Brazil, it's a lot of poverty and stuff down there. So there was videos of like the tourists getting robbed of their iPhones on the beach, and crazy stuff was happening. And at the time I had a lot of Brazilian friends and stuff, in Orange County, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to Rio, and whatever. And he's like, oh man, like, now's not the time, buddy. It's feast or famine, and right now they're feasting. Like, it's not, don't go. And so me and my friend were like, all right, we're gonna hit this anyway. Like, we're gonna do this. So it starts with my friend EJ, who right now lives in Bangkok, Thailand.
Okay.
Crazy dude from the East Coast. I met him just at Worlds one year by happenstance, and then every like 6 months he would come out for a tournament. He would stay with me and just like crash at my couch or whatever. And that's how we became friends. So it was his genius idea to go to Rio with some other friends of his that I never met. Yeah. So the story starts like, okay, he hits me up. He's like, hey, we're renting this house and Airbnb in Rio. Like, let's go. Let's do this. It's like cheap at the time. Travel was super cheap. I had the money. I was like, okay, we're going to go down there. First thing is like, he's like, all right, send my friend your end of the money of things, right? So I send it, sight unseen. Basically, I don't know where I'm staying, but like this is the start of it. As soon as we finally, a couple weeks go by, book the flights, whatever, it gets like to be the week of leaving. I'm like, guys, where are we? Like, give me the address. Like, where are we staying? Whatever. And they give the address, and I like take it to my Brazilian friend who's from that area, Copacabana in Rio. And I was like, do you know where this is? And he looked at it, and he's like, looked at me, and he's just like, no, you're not staying here. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, may never see you again. He's just like the mouth of the favela opening. Ooh. So like in Rio and Copacabana, there's the big favela is called Cantagalo. And it's like right where Copacabana beach meets the hills. So you're talking like it's only 3-4 blocks to the beach, but it's at the base of a really steep hill, and that's where the favelas are. And so the apartment that we rented was like literally on that street that faces the favela, Cantagalo. Yeah. So we weren't in the favela, but we're literally across the street from it. So we're like, okay. Like,
well, didn't they kick a bunch of people out to build like the Olympic Stadium?
Did they
just like?
I think they like displaced people for all kinds of weird shit, and there was just like a lot of corruption about those Olympics. You know, I remember actually going there and like walking like on the beach, and there was like huge, like pavilions that they had built, like temporary pavilions. Really? And it, for the Olympics, right? And it had just been abandoned. Dang. Like it was just like looked like a safety hazard. Like it was just gonna collapse. When like that shit was over, they just abandoned it. They didn't bother taking stuff down or like. That's not weird. That's just not how they do it down there. It's just, it's just kind of corrupt. So, yeah, we were down there, and like the second night we were there, we like woke up, at like 9 or 10 a.m. We were drinking all night, and it was just like automatic AK fire, like what the heck? And like we all kind of like come out of our rooms, like, oh man, like you guys hear that shit? We're like, yeah, okay. So we ended up leaving. I have a bunch of videos on my Instagram from this like years and years ago, and we leave for the day, and there's like. Basically, like, we didn't know, but a few days before we got there, some drug dealers killed some cops. And so after we got there, the cops were like, it's revenge time now. Yeah. And so what they do is they siege the favela and they evacuate it. They basically get on speakers, on helicopters, and, like, tell everybody it's time to get out. And if you're staying, that means you're there to die. Like, you're there to fight the cops, And so it was really intense. The training down there was really cool. We went to one gym. I don't want to say the name, I guess, but they were definitely like we had the gringo targets from day one. Really? Of course, this has to be prefaced. That's like, I'm like 65 pound brown belt, right? From America. I don't speak the language. And then my best friend I'm down there with is like your size, maybe a little bit taller and has like a purple mohawk and tattoos like everywhere, like on his neck and his arm. It's just like, so we're just like the odd couple anyway. Yeah. And then we're gringos, and then we, you know, we're not white belts. So it's like, we can kind of threaten you with our skills. So it was, we got gringoed at one gym where it was like, you know, after about like 45 minutes of rolling, I'm like, God, I feel like I'm rolling with only black belts right now. Like, there's nobody else to roll with here. Like, okay. But I mean, the training was great. We had a really great time. I got to train with Rico Vieira, who's Leo Vieira's brother, Checkmat Gym. And then we got to train with Terere, who's like a legend of jiu-jitsu. That was like the best part of the trip for me. That's so cool. Was training in his gym. He's got like a social project in the favela. So it's up the hill. It's like in the actual favela itself. And the government basically gave him a free lease for this space in order to provide free jiu-jitsu for the kids. And the government gives them gives them a small stipend. So they like, not only do they teach the kids jiu-jitsu, but it's like after their school, they come there for like snacks and like, you know, juice boxes and stuff like that. Cause these kids, like, their parents literally have nothing. Yeah. You know, there's not even running water in the favela. Yeah. So it's like, you know, they're doing like real social outreach stuff there. So it's really cool. That was like the highlight of the trip for me, was getting to train under him and seeing the kids. And we brought like a bunch of gis to donate. So we brought probably like 35 gis, you know, we just collected before the trip, and then we ended up donating, you know, so people can have something done. Yeah, it was a crazy intense trip. It was up and down, like, you know,
imagine, dude,
intense violence, and then like, you know, there's like grenades basically going off up there and shit, like fires, and it was a real deal.
Trip, especially from you being from like Orange County. I'm assuming you've probably never heard AK machine gun fire like that, unless it's like in a range.
Yeah,
like,
not AKs, definitely not.
That would just be a trip in its own right. Like, I remember the first time hearing that. Obviously, I was deployed, so you expect it, but just the sounds of it, like it's a sound and something so distinct that you don't forget. Like, right when you said that, I'm thinking, man, I know exactly
that noise.
I know exactly that noise, and I'll never forget it. Yeah. But so after those games, you came back here. Were you already you went to Vegas after that, right?
Yeah. So I got back, and like I was saying, like that was like a real pivotal moment, you know, because I was like in between jobs. And like I had a savings, you know, so I was like, years prior to that, I had like gotten into the loan industry through a friend of a friend, and I was like a 22-year-old kid, and I was able to like amass like a pretty good little savings for being really young, and eventually, like, you know, the loan industry got all crazy or whatever, and we were all laid off, and I didn't work for like 3 years.
Dang.
Almost like 2.5 years. And I just lived off my savings. Because, you know, when you're 22, you can live off of like 25 grand a year.
Yeah.
No problem. Like all day. Yeah. You know, you get a roommate and you're cool. But so at that time, I come back from Rio. I was like in between that position. And that's when I was already training with Casey. And he was like, yo, man, like, why don't you move out to Vegas? And you know, help me run these gyms and learn what it is to be a gym owner and learn what it is to like build a school from scratch.
That's cool that someone in his position would even offer you that. I mean, it shows his character and the type of dude he is, because he was at Rain for a little bit with us, because we had brought in 10th Planet into Rain before Mark shut it down. And then that's how I met Casey through that.
Nice.
And he was always like the nicest guy. You know, he was really cool, but it was definitely a different style for someone my size.
Oh, yeah.
Like fighting at heavyweight. I was like, oh, this is way different. And so we kept in touch after, because I would see him at events and things like that. And he was always like super nice to me. And he was always really cool. So to see his success, I've only seen it like online and stuff, you know, because Casey cornered Mark Munoz for his retirement fight that we helped him get ready for. And so he was very much a part of like the gym transitioning. So it's really cool to see him go out to Vegas and do all that stuff, but then to offer you like, hey man, look, I want you to come and help me run these gyms is rad. I mean, that speaks volumes on him.
And then kick you out to go do your own thing.
Like yeah.
Right? That's
not
the
kick
part,
me out in a bad way, but he basically came to me later and was like, yo, it's
like, you gotta
which is
go.
the best
it's
part
time.
though.
It's time for you to do it, you know.
As somebody that like if you're in a position like he is, and you have businesses, you've done all this, you're doing all these things, if your goal isn't to see people that are working quote unquote underneath you like to succeed and hopefully eventually have their own thing, then you're just a tool. Because you know, like that's what you want, right? Like people will ask me sometimes about, oh, like, you know, something, I don't know how it even gets brought up, but like, oh, aren't you, you know, they're better than you at that now. Like when a customer sees me behind the bar and I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me happy. Like I should not be the best one inside of my business at anything except for leading the business. Right. And so to hear, you know, hear that to me outside of like obviously speaks volumes about his character, but you want people to succeed, right? Like you don't want to be the top dog
you don't
all
want
the
to be
time.
you know, it's lonely at the top when you're not helping other people reach there.
Yeah.
You know
And
I mean?
that's for, on the business side for me, that's cool. Cause that's, you know, that's literally my former roaster bought his own coffee company in Utah and now has his own business with his own employees. And like, to me, that is freaking rad.
That's so
you know,
cool.
Like, that's so much cooler than any awards we've won or anything like that as a business. To see him, you know, I hired him when he was younger, and now he's got a family, he's got his own company, he's doing all these things. I'm like, dude, that's sick. Like, and then another former employee of mine, they have their own business, and it's like they're pretty decent sized businesses. So so for me, I'm like, yes.
And that's something that's like, I never had like a mentor, you know what I mean, like that. And that's really what, you know, the opportunity he gave me was a mentorship. You know, it's like, dude, it's like you can go to college for 4 years to get a business degree, or you could spend 4 years with somebody who's built X amount of businesses, who has had successful businesses for X amount of years, and learn firsthand exactly how things operate and how to do things.
It's real life experience.
Exactly.
It's not like
It's way better than
from
theory.
a book.
It's not theory.
It's not a freaking piece of paper that you spend $100,000 to get a degree from.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's real life stuff.
And it was like, I got to learn, the biggest thing that was like enticed me was like, he told me one time, was like, yo, you get to make decisions with autonomy. Like, he's giving me the chance to make decisions that really are going to affect this business. And he's like, and you're going to make mistakes, you're going to mess up, and it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to make mistakes as a business, we're going to learn from them, we're going to grow from them. He's like, but what you're going to get is you're going to get to make these choices that aren't like on my dime. You know what I mean? It's not like at the end of the day, it's not my business, it's his, but he's given me that ability to kind of work within that frame and try to build it and know what it is, like hands on. Like, oh, you know, when I came on, hey, we had, you know, 62 members. When I left Las Vegas, we were approaching 500 members.
Goodness gracious.
You know, in 4 years, you know, and obviously that's not all me. That's like, that's Coach Casey. That was me. That was the other coaches as well who were a part of building everything.
500 members.
Dude, but yeah, now they're over 500. They're over 500.
That's crazy.
You know, between 2 schools, you know, and it was.
That's so legit. We got to go to Vegas.
That's a lot. Yeah. Oh, dude, the training there is insane.
We're going to get it when he has his gym. So let's fast forward back a little bit. So you came out here, freaking 2020 hit. Everyone knows what happened. Pandemic, starting businesses, gyms, even though they're really healthy and they can do a lot of good for your body, they were one of the first things to shut down.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
They got us.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. But so let's go through that and kind of talk about how you got onto like what you're doing now, plus the plans for your gym.
Cool. So again, you know, came back from pandemic. You know, I was like in the middle of like lease negotiations, me and my business partner, for a spot in Whittier when the pandemic went down. We were like, this is the spot. We made an offer. We're going back and forth on a couple things with the landlord, and that all stuff happened. So we were like real lucky, like, oh, we didn't sign this lease, thank God, you know, and pay rent on a place we can't use. So during that time, we were like, all right, just kind of got to play the waiting game. Well, you know, the city of Whittier is in L.A. County. It's not Orange County. So those is obviously more restrictive, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I was stuck. Like, all right, man, I you know, I need to do something to survive. Like, what other avenues do we have right here? So, you know, I have a lot of friends that, you know, students, friends, people that I just met through jiu-jitsu over the years. The community is real tight, you know, everyone knows each other. You know, it's like 1 degree of separation. I was like, oh, I trained with Coach Casey. You're like, oh, I trained with them at Rain. It's like, it's always 1 or 2 degrees of separation.
That's what I'm learning, man.
Yeah, everyone knows everyone. So if you're a dick, it's going to get around real quick. You got to be cool. So, anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing these tournaments because Jeff Glover, who's like a jiu-jitsu, you know, OG, he was the first one in the pandemic. You know, obviously the gyms closed. Well, all the tournaments shut down too. But you know, after like a month or two, reality in the community set in that was like, everyone's training again. You know, everyone put the butcher paper up on the windows.
There's nothing happening in here.
We're not doing anything in here. The lights are out. Everyone's entering through the back door. You know, like, come on. We're at a certain point, we're all like, we're gonna keep training.
Yeah, that's when I started. I
think
we had you probably had the things on the wall.
Construction paper window, on the wall, you know, and it's like, okay, so, you know, once that point happened, Jeff Glover's the first one I saw to like do it in-house, basically like an in-house style tournament, but for money, for like the pro grapplers.
Like at his gym?
So like, yeah, he had like a space. I don't know if it was at his gym. It was like, I think it like, honestly, that was a Hell's Angels clubhouse if I remember right now.
He found like a random.
No, it wasn't random. It was.
They like he knew.
Yeah, no, like he was friends with a guy from Hell's Angels, and they like they rented their clubhouse.
Hell's Angels supports jiu-jitsu.
It was a little bit of a weird vibe. I'm not gonna lie. It was like
pretty gnarly.
There's a lot of dudes in leather jackets, and then a lot of dudes that, you know,
are in spandex.
Yeah. It was a weird clash of cultures. I'll be honest. Nothing bad happened. It was all chill, but they were looking at us like, look at these dorks, and we're looking at them like, look at these dorks. You know, like it was a lot of like.
That's pretty funny.
You know, so anyway, he was the one who kind of inspired that, and I was like, man, you know what? Like I have experience doing tournaments because I've done a few in Vegas when I was working for Casey at 10th Planet. We did a few tournaments at this like barcade nightclub thing on Fremont Street, because one of our gyms was right off of Fremont, so we made friends with a lot of, you know, the people who work there and stuff. Anyway, I was like, all right, I got this inspiration. I was like, man, let's put together like a tournament locally in Orange County where people are chill and, you know.
Yeah.
Huntington Beach is where my friend's gym is. Shout out to Abel with Black Belt Collective. That's the name of his gym, Black Belt Collective. It's in HB. So we set it up, and I just started promoting it. And, you know, when I moved back here, obviously I wasn't training with Casey because he lives in Vegas. So it was like, all right, I'm already been a black belt for a while, but I'm always a perpetual student. Like I just started training judo like a year ago. So as a white belt, I just started, you know? And so when I moved back home, I was like, all right, I got to start training with Eddie, because I actually didn't train with Eddie really, you know, but a few times before I moved to Vegas, because I was new to 10th Planet. I had just trained with Casey and the MMA squad and stuff. So when I moved back here, I was like, all right, let me go train with Eddie Bravo, go to HQ, make the rounds there, and start learning, you know, a little bit more from him directly. And so I had some connections, really great videographer, my boy Michael Plaster. He shot all of Eddie's like videos and does like his website. So I contacted him with the idea like, hey, let's like, I want to put on this tournament. I want to shoot it professionally. I want to edit it, release it, like build some content, you know, kind of came to him with the idea, with the formulation that I, you know, started putting together.
Yeah.
And man, it just started catching fire. Like the first 2-3 events we did, it was like everybody, it was like on, like, I know this sounds not humble, but like it was humbling because like everyone was coming to us like, this was such a great experience. It was a great tournament, super organized, no waiting around, people are winning money, it looks cool on video. Like we were having a hard time getting like critiques. Like I was like, okay, like thank you, but like what?
But who's bad?
Yeah, what's like what can we work on? Like what can we do better? You know, and it was hard getting a little feedback. So that was when I kind of knew like, okay, we're doing some cool stuff. And then, you know, we do 4 or 5 events, and then one of a guy through Michael Plaster approached me, who runs like a talent agency in LA, and he was like, hey, you know, I like what you're doing, blah blah blah. Turns out this dude's the head of USA Grappling, and USA Grappling is like the equivalent of USA Wrestling. So USA Wrestling, they field like the US Olympic team, right? You know, you got to do the trials. You win the trials, you go to the Olympics, you represent America. So USA Grappling does like the same thing for grappling. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the UWW, which is like the organizing body of wrestling. They have a grappling style now, right? So they do that grappling style at their own world championships and all that stuff. And they're pushing it to get into the Olympics in 2028 because it's here in Los Angeles. It's going to be in America. So the goal is to get that rule set of the sport, grappling, into the Olympics in 2028. So he approached me with all this info and was like, you know, I want you to come aboard, be a part of the organization, help organize the trials. try to get the best guys from across America to come to the trials and represent the country. And then the winners, they're going to get all expenses paid to go to Serbia to fight in the Worlds.
Oh, wow.
So that was like, okay, this is like legit, you know, this is the ground stages of us getting jiu-jitsu and grappling into the Olympics, you know? So I was like, all right, I'm definitely in. So we organized the trials, had a really, really great event. You know, through him and the help of sponsors and stuff, we were able to get like a really cool venue, LA Center Studios in downtown LA. We shot it on this like rooftop observation deck.
That's sick.
Sundown, we were doing the finals, so it's like sundown going into nighttime, all the skyscrapers in downtown LA. Like it was just
That's
really cool. We shot
Yeah.
it really cool. And you know, the trials were great, and then we took the team just this last October to Serbia to compete in the Worlds. So we went over there with like 12 athletes and, you know, paid all their expenses, all that stuff.
So sick.
Flew over there, competed. We had, man, just shout out to Turkish Airlines being the worst airline on the planet, dude.
I've flown on that before.
They left us hanging so bad. They lost our whole team's luggage from our sponsors who designed and comped our gear, Cruise Combat, was in one big giant bag that I checked in LA, and it never made it to Belgrade. The entire trip. It never made it to Serbia. So like
Did you guys ever find it?
It made its way back to LA. Like I picked it back up in Los Angeles.
That's
how bad. It
terrible.
was so bad, dude. Like 10 days later, you know? And so the entire team, there was like 2 guys who had their own set of rash guards and shorts, you know, because it's got to be Team USA. It's got to have your colors. You have to have a red one and a blue one. Like it's Olympic. This is Olympics, dude. Like this is the level of competition we're at. And it was like, we were scrambling different stores in Serbia to like buy rash guards and paint like USA on it. And we literally like used like fabric tape to make a U and an S, and it was so embarrassing. I felt so horrible. And yeah, Turkish Airlines, we spent the night with no hotel, sleeping on the floor in Istanbul airport. It was just like the worst start to the trip ever, but going there and getting to compete was something else. Like I got to coach the guys, you know, I went over there as a coach, and watching them compete and seeing like the world level talent out there was like, that was the first time I've seen like high level elite Russians and Ukrainians and like Eastern Bloc countries that are like, dude, these guys have been wrestling forever. They've been on an Olympic program since they were 5 years old.
So literally forever.
Yeah.
You know, like the level of dedication that they were at was like clearly a little bit higher than ours, you know, like half of our team has jobs.
Yeah.
You know, they're great grapplers, they're black belts, but like, you know, they're not getting state funded to do this, you know what I mean? We're like scraping by on a budget to make it happen. But it was a really cool experience, and like the people in Serbia were like so welcoming. Everyone was really cool, and like the coolest thing I saw there was like the athletes. Like the competition was fierce, everyone was competing hard. There was 5-point throws, like all kinds of crazy stuff happening, but like the camaraderie after the competition.
That's cool.
And seeing like, you know, I met like the coach from the Polish team, and like me and him were talking, and we exchanged our sweatshirts.
Okay.
I had a Team USA sweatshirt. That was like one of the only items that made it, because I took it out of the bag to wear on the plane. And I was like, but you know, we traded sweatshirts, and then like other guys traded, you know, their rash guards with their competitor, somebody they competed against, you know. So seeing that camaraderie between like the international countries, that was like really cool. And I was like, oh man, this is like so much different than a jiu-jitsu tournament that I'm used to. And this was grappling, right? It was a grappling rule set. So
what's the difference? What's the rule set for grappling?
so like most people do grappling rule sets under like IBJJF, right? Like the federation. So they do like, you know, the points for takedown, all that stuff. That is it's pretty similar for UWW grappling, but they emphasize like more points for like high elevation throws. And then they have like an extra point if it's like if you get a takedown in the first 3 seconds of the match, you get 3 instead of 2.
Oh, damn.
You know, so it emphasizes like the action from the jump. The rounds aren't, you know, it's 10 minutes for black belts here at IBJJF and like the States and Euros and whatever, but all the UWW matches are 5 minutes. So it's just shorter, quicker to the action. There's way more stalling penalties. Like the refs actually use a yellow card system, and they really do penalize stalling. So
they
that
just
was
want
really
you to
good.
go.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
cool,
insisting you go.
Well, and that's going to bring eyes to the sport. Too,
Yeah, it just creates
more action.
More action, yeah. And all the submissions were legal except heel hooks, like straight ankle, knee bar, all that stuff was legal.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it was cool. And what I realized right away was like, oh, most of these European teams, especially like Russia or whatever, was like these dudes were like 28 years old, whatever, guys who grew up wrestling or doing judo or whatever at the state sponsored level, and now they're in their later 20s, and so they can't really make the world team for wrestling anymore. So they're doing grappling. So now they're learning jiu-jitsu, as like a world-class Olympic level wrestler.
That
That's
means
really
that means
dude.
there's
Some of these guys were scary. It was
scary,
scary,
yeah,
dude.
I bet.
That
it
means
was
they're
scary.
animals.
I mean, you're talking like the heavyweights, like 5-point throwing each other. It was impressive.
Wrestlers at that level, and if they get good at
And then they start
jiu-jitsu,
learning
that's scary.
Dude, that opened my eyes. I was like, oh man.
But it's going to elevate the sport.
Yeah,
to
a world
to
stage.
another degree.
To a world stage.
Especially
That's the goal.
here, because you have guys like you that are seeing it firsthand. So you can come back home and say, "Hey guys, like we need to step our game up.
We need to
do this.
We need to up our level." Like one of our guys on Team USA, John Hansen, he got third place over at UWW Worlds in Serbia, right? So
John from Nebraska?
Yeah, from Nebraska.
Yeah, I know John. He used to come over.
Amazing grappler.
Well, he's friends with Ellenberger.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he used to come over to Reign all the time.
No way.
Talk about small world
small
again.
world. See, 1 degree.
Yeah.
So I spent a week with him and his wife in Serbia. They were both on the team for the US, and he's an amazing competitor, super tough. He got third at UWW, which is super impressive. And then a week later, he comes home and wins ADCC trials East Coast.
Yeah.
He wins them.
And he got third.
And he got third at UWW Worlds. But obviously, different rule sets and all that too.
Sure.
But at the same time, it lets you know, like, dude, the best guy on the East Coast at this weight in America, who just won ADCC, he didn't even win the Worlds. He didn't even win gold at UWW. Yeah. So it tells you, like, the level is there. It's very elite. It's not, you're not going over there and just beating scrubs, like it's,
that's nuts.
Those dudes are elite.
That's so sick, though.
That was a really cool trip, and we got to experience a lot of stuff, and I got to see, like, just like everything, the state, like not the stadium, but like the venue that they rented was like, the presentation was Olympic, the mats, everything is like organized. When you go to a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Well put together.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu tournaments, you've been to them too. It's
it's pretty
high school gym.
Yeah. It's like, hey guys.
People no shoes on in the bathroom.
Yeah. It's pretty.
But if you think about, I mean, just how I don't even want to say it is, though. It's crazy this story is, because do you think this would have ever happened? You running the events, you coaching at with the U.S. national team, if COVID hadn't happened?
Man, that's crazy. I never even really thought about it, like if COVID didn't happen. Because you're right, things could have been totally different. I may have never have started doing events for submission only series, and then I would have never met the guys at USA Grappling. I would have never went to Serbia. Yeah, you're totally right. That's definitely something.
That's a great perspective to look at it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, man, COVID ruined everything. I mean, it ruined a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
For you in this light, you probably would have opened your gym and been stuck grinding.
Right.
Like you wouldn't now. Dude, you have such a cool. When you first told me about the USA Grappling, I was like, dude, that is so sick. Like, and it's gonna be in LA. And I think I even asked you that when we were talking that one day. I was like, why isn't grappling or jiu-jitsu in the Olympics yet? Like that's weird, right? Like that, but because judo is.
No, it's judo.
Okay.
Yeah.
But judo, and I think there's karate or something like that.
Karate and taekwondo.
I say taekwondo,
Karate.
boxing, fencing.
So like their thing is like, honestly, that was another thing I learned on this trip and dealing with the UWW was like, this is all politics. Like, the Olympics is all about politics.
Yeah, it's the sports that.
Unfortunately, like what they want you to think is that the Olympics is like they're putting politics aside and it's all about the sport and competition and all that. But in reality, is all about politics. So it's like, the guys who are the heads of wrestling, they don't want like grappling to like supersede them. They don't want them to get more eyes than what they're doing because their sports are already struggling too.
Yeah, they're losing a lot.
So they're fighting almost every Olympic bid to like take wrestling off the Olympics. You hear it every 4 years. They don't. Thank goodness it deserves to be Olympics. It should always be Olympics. But I think there's a little bit of struggle in there. And then number two, like I was surprised, like this style is like readily adapted throughout Europe. There was a lot of European countries representing, but there was no Brazil, there was no Canada. Our USA team, like we didn't have huge trials. We had like 60 guys show up for trials, you know, guys and girls. But like, you know, how many high-level super elite black belts are there? There's hundreds in America.
So there's a freaking ton.
We should have the best team in the world, probably, right? Realistically, but it's just not. It just hasn't been marketed and hasn't been like this. Isn't people don't realize this is pretty much the only way jiu-jitsu gets in the Olympics, because the UWW is the head of grappling for the Olympics. You know, everything wrestling falls under their jurisdiction. So they have the grappling style, which means their style is what's going to go to the Olympics. So like these rules are just like, and what's crazy is like we do have influence over them. We're still like, they're still modifying the rules. The head of USA grappling, the president, Richard Tato, is the one who wrote the rules for the UWW.
So they're open to working with grappling.
Yeah, they're open to like still modifying stuff
cool.
and changing it and making it more spectator friendly, which is always like, that's the struggle. I think that's what.
There has to be a way to integrate it, though, where you can run, like, use the same venue that wrestling does. So you can either do it, like, right before, right after.
Yeah.
That way it keeps eyes on wrestling. That way you guys are now supporting wrestling, too, where it's like, hey, we'll go right before you so that our fans, if they want to stick around and watch wrestling, they can. So
they had a wrestling event at the Grappling Worlds that we went to. It had like I think it was a 17U World Championships or something like that.
But there's got to be a way to integrate it, because a lot of the fans, I'm sure they'd watch it too, because wrestling is a part of grappling. A form of it, but it's a part of it. So I'm sure fans would want to support it and be like, hey, we'll definitely support it. Like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, we'll watch it, and you'll get introduced to things that they don't know. But yeah, I think it's cool, man, that everything that you're doing, and you know, it's crazy to think that the pandemic hadn't happened, you might have not been in where you're at now. So now you're doing events. You are you the head coach? Can I say that?
Yeah. I was the head coach for 2021.
Okay.
So we'll have another trials again this year, later in like August, September actually.
Okay.
So September we'll have a trials. Team will get formed, then we'll pick the coach, and then they'll go to the Worlds again. I think it's in November this year in like Sweden or Denmark.
And then you're also opening up your gym, or is it already open?
No, it's not open yet. So what I'm looking to do is actually, it's to open 10th Planet Whittier. That's the name of my gym. It's to be located in the city of Whittier. Official 10th Planet affiliate. Got approved by, you know, Master Eddie to open up. And, you know, I've just kind of been in limbo because, again, I started submission only series, did all my stuff, did the traveling and all that, and now I'm just literally looking for at least like every day in the city of Whittier.
Okay.
And it's like that city is not super huge. There's not like a ton of commercial properties. So it's like there's a lot of properties that are like 2,500 square feet and under, and then there's a few like super expensive 8, 9, 10,000 square foot spots. There's nothing like right in that sweet spot that I need that I haven't seen already. So I'm just looking every single day. Like I'm on LoopNet every day, tapping in, just checking, see what's out. I drive the area every 2-3 days and just look it out and calling brokers. And so I'm hoping to have at least like any day. Like if we see the perfect spot tomorrow, we're putting in an offer.
I'll hit up I don't know if I told you, I'll hit my landlord up. He owns just a lot of properties in Whittier.
Everywhere. Oh, Whittier.
In Whittier.
Oh,
on
nice.
Sorensen and Whittier Boulevard.
What's the other street you said?
Whittier Boulevard and Sorensen.
Oh, yeah, Sorensen.
He owns like that whole thing.
Okay.
So I'll text him right after we get off when we finish this. But
that'd be dope.
I just think it's cool, like to kind of recap and summarize everything. One, we appreciate you for coming on.
Thanks.
Two,
again.
like I'm stoked that you had Ashley on, because then I got to meet him. But three, it's like, dude, for people listening, or you're in a situation where maybe you have something. Manny talks about this all the time, but you have something that you're really passionate about, or you're really good at something. Like, this is just one story out of millions of stories that are out there of someone that found what you like to do and you turned it into a career. And for someone like me, like just listening and looking out, or looking from the outside in, I think that's something that's like such a cool and unique perspective, because not everyone can take like a passion and turn it into their life.
Yeah, I'm super lucky, dude. I'm honestly like,
you're lucky, but you hustled.
I hustled, but I'm humble about it, because like you gotta just consider yourself lucky, because there's so many amazing fighters, grapplers, all that stuff who don't get the right opportunities, maybe don't market themselves, maybe don't, whatever the case is, and I just feel like, yeah, I'm real lucky to be in the position I am. The right time, it's like, it's never gonna happen. That's what I've learned about opening a gym too, because I've been waiting for the last 2 years, and I'm always
that's
like,
awesome.
Like, is the right time may never come. So if it's something that you're really truly passionate about, you absolutely just have to jump in with both feet.
You just don't stop. You adapt and you pivot and you move.
But that's what I was going to touch on. It's cool because you've been able to essentially pivot, but still stay in the same industry. Running events is still jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Being a coach is still jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Even though you don't have your gym yet, it's still, you're able to do different things. And I think it's cool that you touched on a lot of guys that don't market themselves, a lot of guys that don't get the right opportunities, because there is more of those guys that didn't make it, that fighters, competitors, athletes that no one knows, that were great but never had the right opportunity, like you said. Yep. And I think it's for people listening, like, if you have that opportunity, like, go take it. Go out and risk it. You're never going to learn anything if you don't go and take that risk. But I know we can sit here and talk forever, so I'd love to have you back on, first of all.
But
and then second, where can people find you? Like, to go support you, to go hit you up?
We'll tag it also, but we like to always have people just say it.
So definitely go follow Submission Only Series. That's like the main project right now. We actually just signed a 2-year exclusive deal with Flow Grappling.
Nice.
So we're going to be on Flow now, which is like the biggest,
dude, that's cool,
most premier. Yeah, that's like the biggest reach in grappling, right?
Yeah,
is their service. So we signed a 2-year deal with them. Super blessed and lucky to have that. And you can also check out so submissiononlyseries.com. You can also check out at 10th Planet Whittier, 10P Whittier on Instagram.
10P Whittier.
And you can check out 10thplanetwhittier.com too. That's the gym page. And
awesome.
We'll have all that updated like as soon as we get a lease. Like we're taking, I have like 20 people that have been rocking with me doing group privates and things like that and around the city of Whittier for the last couple years now. So I got like a solid little group of 20 people who are ready as soon as we have a lease. Day one, they're signing up. So check the website. I'll keep it posted as soon as we have the lease signed. Like we're rolling. It's gonna be quick.
That's awesome.
That's super cool.
Well, Ben, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No, I was gonna say I appreciate you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
you so much for coming on, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Manny.
Bam! And remember, guys, that everything was impossible until someone did it. So, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Fight Within Podcast. Find us on all audio platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, anywhere you guys like to listen to it. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for continuing to listen to it and watch it. We can see the growth on our analytics, and just want to thank you guys for supporting us.